So today we will be talking about le passé composé, or the past tense. The past tense is used to describe things that have already happened. So if you want to say, I ate some pizza, you would say, j'ai mangé de la pizza. Now you notice that this is a two-part verb tense. The first verb is called the auxiliary verb, and the second is called the past participle. We're going to start by looking at the past participles because those generally stay the same no matter what your auxiliary verb is. And the past participle is the verb that describes the action that was actually done in the past. So for example, if you studied last night, you would say, j'ai étudié hier soir. And étudier is your past participle and the action you did last night. Now most verbs are going to follow a pattern. So your ER verbs are going to keep their stem, but instead of ending with ER, it's going to end with E accent aigu. But the pronunciation stays exactly the same. So aller is aller, étudier, étudier, manger, manger. The only difference is in the spelling. Next, your IR verbs are just going to drop the R. So dormir becomes dormi, choisir, choisi, et partir. Partir becomes parti. Next, you have your RE verbs. Those are going to keep the stem as well, but they're going to drop the RE and add a U on the end. So attendre becomes entendu, battre becomes battu, rendre becomes rendu. Now, of course, you're going to have some irregular past participles. The most common are être, faire, and avoir. Être becomes été, faire becomes fait, avoir becomes eu. A few that end in u are boire becomes bu, connaître becomes connu, and lire becomes lu. The next ones end in it. So conduire becomes conduit, dire becomes dit, and écrire becomes écrit. Now these are not all of the irregulars, but these are going to be the most common ones that you're going to use, and the rest of them I will show you what they look like as we come to them. So next let's look at your auxiliary verbs. You have two choices, either avoir or être. Most of your verbs are going to use avoir, with just a few using être, but they're both used the same way. You're going to place them before your past participle and conjugate them according to your subject, or who's doing the action. So, a review of conjugating avoir. J'ai, tu as, il, elle, on a, nous avons, vous avez, ils, elles ont mangé. And you see I put manger at the end of those because that's showing you what it looks like with your past participle. And you notice manger does not change, while avoir does. So like I said, these are going to be used with most of your verbs. Now, être, let's go over the conjugation for that. Je suis, tu es, il, elle, on est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils, elles sont. Now, as you can see, you have the option of putting either an E or an S on the end of aller, your auxiliary or your past participle. This you're going to use only if your subject is feminine. So for me, being a girl, I would say je suis allée with an extra E on the end. But for you boys, you don't have to worry about that. And that's going to hold true for each type of subject that you have. So let's look at your verbs that use être. Devenir, retourner, mourir, rester, sortir, venir, aller, naître, descendre, entrer, rentrer, tomber, revenir, arriver, monter, passer, and partir. Now your only other verbs that are going to use être are going to be your reflexive verbs. So verbs like se coucher, se maquiller, se laver, and so on. So next we're going to talk about verb agreement. Like I said, you're going to make your verbs agree, or by agree I mean adding either an E or an S on the end of your participe passé in order to agree with the subject. The only other time you're really going to do this is if you have a direct object that goes in front of your verb. So for example, elle l'a regardé. She watched it. And if it is a feminine object, you're going to add the E onto the end. So, when are you going to use le passé composé? You're going to use this to talk about completed events that happened in the past. These aren't going to be habitual events that you say that you've done every day. These are going to be like, j'ai regardé la télé hier soir. You watched the television last night. It's done. You're not still watching the TV or anything like that. You can also use it to talk about a series of actions. So if you're going to say, I ate some pizza and then I went and studied, you'd say j'ai mangé de la pizza et puis j'ai étudié. So you're using passé composé for both of those actions. The only other time you're going to use this is when you have a state and change of being or a reaction. So if the wind blows and then all of a sudden you were cold, you would say j'ai eu froid. So, let's do a little practice. For these ones, we're going to practice using avoir as your auxiliary verb. So, j'ai écouté de la musique. I listened to some music. Next, elle a nagé à la piscine. She swam at the pool. Next, we have nous avons choisi la nourriture pour la fête. We chose the food for the party. And finally, ils ont entendu pour les résultats. They listened for the results. Next, we're going to practice using être. So, je suis allée à la bibliothèque. And for me, because I'm a girl, I would add the E. But for you boys, don't worry about it. Next, we have elle est partie à 8h ce matin. She left at 8 o'clock this morning. And because you're talking about a girl, you would add the E. Next, we have nous sommes couchés trop tard hier soir. We went to bed too late last night. And if the we you're talking about is all girls, you would add the E. Otherwise, you only add an S. And finally, ils sont descendus les escaliers. They went down the stairs. Because you're using ils, that's a masculine subject, so you don't have to add the E. But as you can see, I did forget to add the S. So do not forget to do that if your subject is plural, like we have here. Alright guys, that's all I have for you today, and I hope that you guys learned something, and if not, we will be working with le passé composé for the rest of the week. So any questions you have, we will discuss in class.